sister set the stage for us perfectly. And Kristen, her oldest daughter, just walked in. I'm so glad to have you, Kristen. And so we're not going to go in any particular order. We'll just, because one comment might spark another comment, I'll just say as a starter, I think I met JoAnn in 1997, somewhere in there. And it was in a classroom setting. We were taking a class from the wife of Father Pat Eastman, Maureen, who had just been to England learning all about feminine spirituality. And so in that group was, I mean, these were awesome women, totally awesome. There were about 7 or 8 of us. And JoAnn was just a spark plug. And I sat by her most of the time, although we didn't know each other. And I had no words. I, you know, up against what she came out with and what she knew and what all of them knew already. I was just like a little baby feminist. And, although Bob can say from early on, I've been a feminist, but a theology type feminist. I was a baby theology feminist. So anyway, and then from then on, she's one of those people I was just drawn to. I just wanted more. I wanted to hear, you know, what set her off lately. What, you know, and she didn't mince any words. She was always like, you know, she had worked for Catholic Charities for a while. She had done this for a while, you know, and she knew the scoop. And it was not good scoop. And so, you know, and then her agony of feeling like she was shut out of her own belief system, which is, I think that gave her internal pain for all of her life. And somebody that should have been a priest and was not able to, should have been a priest and should have been able to minister to so many more people because she had that capacity. And anyway, I never saw JoAnn not welcome somebody. She was always welcoming people to her home, to whatever. She made it a point to know who people were and let them know who she was. So for me to say she has been a role model to me would be an understatement. You know, anyway, I think, in fact, this morning I told her, you've got to help us with this. Do something. Yeah, you better help us with this, and I'm going to count on you, and I know you're going to do it because she's going to have more power now than she's ever had. So anyway, I'll just let somebody else talk for a while.
I'd like to say something before I have to leave.
Oh, good, Kathy. Okay.
JoAnn and I were friends for quite a long time. I knew her from when she was at St. Mary's, and then when I was a year ahead of her in social work school, getting our master's, and she always gave me a lot more credit than what I deserved. And you know, she said I was so welcoming to her and all this. That's her. That was her. And then she went and became this new kind of minister through you know, online. And then she would go to New York every couple of months to be there in person. I mean, she was on the cutting edge. And then I have a birthday card she sent me last year that I'd like to read part of to you. The front of it says, advice from a butterfly. And she goes on with beginning greetings, and she says, oh, let me tell you what it says about advice. Let your true colors show. Take yourself lightly. Look for the sweetness in life. Take time to smell the flowers. Catch a breeze. Treat yourself like a monarch. And then she writes to me, and I didn't know that she was interested in something like this, but I think Joann was one who always reached out. I traveled to South Dakota October 19th, 21 with a group called Faith and Money. There were 13 of us on the trip, spent time with the Lakota people, both on their reservation and at their holy places. It was a wonderful trip. The Lakota reservation is the poorest reservation in the United States. And government help is sparse. The people are proud of their traditions, very hospitable and humble too. Grateful my body was able to make this trip. And then she says, we must have a long phone chat soon. Anyway, but it doesn't surprise me that I was surprised, because she was always reaching out and doing things. When the monastery was going through a really difficult transition, there was Joann. She was up there every week, raking the leaves. And I think she was president of the board for a short while. I mean, Joann was there. She had things at her home for organizations to raise money. So I don't know. And then I wrote an email to Regina this morning about a little sleuthing Joann and I did together. Because my daughter in New York had a friend who was a journalist, and there was a congressman from Oklahoma who was doing some underhanded things and had an office in a building downtown that nobody was supposed to know about. And we found it, and we, it felt like we were, Nancy Drew or something. And I mean, she would take chances. So anyway, that's all. And I have to leave. I'm sorry. But Kristen, bless you, dear, for all you've done for your sister. I loved her, and I love you, even though I don't know you very well. I wish you lots of peace and goodwill.
Know your name well, so love you too.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. I have known Joann for a long time. We moved here in 78, and our husbands, Al and Joe, were at the osteopath, and Joe delivered Kristen and Tess. My husband did, and that's what she was. She was inclusive. She made you feel a part. But you know what? You'd say, well, she did it for everybody. She made everybody feel a part. And she didn't just say things, she did them. And she was just such a force, and never afraid to speak, never embarrassed. I love that. I loved how she just spoke the truth, but she sought out people like Denise and Carol mean, I remember when Denise died. I'd never seen your mom cry like that when Denise died, and she called, and they had such a close relationship. And Carol, I mean, and what she would do, I mean, you would talk to her and you think, my gosh, it just never ends. What she does and what she thinks of, and how she would study everything. She studied everything and researched everything. And then she would think about something, and then she would become it. She became a counselor. You know, she was a nurse. She just, I mean, she was like a prophet. She really was a prophet right among us, you know? And darn, I miss her. She just, Joann, we're so grateful for you. So grateful for your courage and she was so real. You know, she was just so real. And, you know, she would just,
And like a lot of prophets, my dear, there were people who didn't get it. And I knew people who knew Joann, like they knew who she was. And then they'd say, oh yeah, she's kind of crazy, isn't she? No. I mean, honestly, and I would just say, well, she's just a little bit more of a radical person. And for many, many years, I knew Joann just in passing. And I really didn't get to know her well until I joined Monos. And then during that period when our mutual friend Denise Moore was ill and dying, that's when we really shared some wonderful times. And we got together one afternoon and shared a bottle of wine to write Denise's obituary together. I'll always remember that. It was a beautiful time, and she helped me sort through all of the different papers that we had from Denise's lifetime, because she had been a Benedictine for such a long time. And so she was also, you know, like a very practical person. What do we need to do with these papers? They need to be given to this person. Da, 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 da. So she could have her sense of spirituality, and she could also have her feet on the ground and be really practical and let's get things done. So I don't feel that I knew her as well as many of you here, but I'll always remember her very fondly.
Well, I first met her 50 years ago
50?
because she was a counselor and she was counseling us with our son Paul. And she was no nonsense, and she was very good, and she was good with us, and we kind of, you know, had that experience getting to go working with her. And then I didn't see her again till, I guess, Monos. I don't know, when Monos started, whatever. And I'm not sure when she came to Monos for the first time. But I do remember when he was having trouble with his marriage, well, come here a minute, you know, Paul. and so she, you know, and she said, you know, have him come talk to me. And she wasn't practicing then. She said, have him come talk to me. And I said, okay, now, I wanted to pay her. She refused. So I sent a donation out to the forest. So, because I had to do something. But what always amazed me about her, that was just my personal little interaction, but what always amazed me about her was her mental energy and multitasking. I mean, her energy was unbounded. Nothing was ever too much to look at or to find out about or whatever. And her generosity.
Yeah.
She was the most generous person, always. And we all loved her.
Absolutely. I met her in the 80s, and we were all in a prison class together. Anne Louise,
Linda Ledour,
oh gosh,
Jenny McCann,
Carol Scott,
and
Joann.
And then we kind of hopscotched over one another's lives through the years until Monos. And you know, I just see her sitting over there and being quiet, and then when it came time for her to say something, she would come out with the most amazing things. that nobody else had thought about. And she had, like Andrea says, she had researched that. And so she knew what she was talking about. And she lived it. And I know that Dee Barlow is a friend of mine now at Clare House, and she was Joann's neighbor and was really helpful to her in those days. But she told me how Joann had reached out to all of the neighbors. She'd been doing things for all the neighbors ever since she'd moved there. So, I mean, you know, that was who she was. Really, I didn't know her that well, but I loved her when I knew her.
Well, I didn't know Joann nearly as long as a lot of you all did, really just since I got involved in Monos during COVID. But some descriptions that have come out from you all, inclusive, it would be one of them, and welcoming. What you mentioned, Carol, about reaching out to her neighbors. Like, she knew everybody within earshot of her house. You know, if you can throw a stone 3 houses down, she knew that person, and she knew what was going on in their life. There wasn't just a casual thing. She was involved in what was going on with them. Was the old man across the street not eating right? I'll take him some food, some nutritious food, things like that. And like one story she said in passing, like it was no big deal. This was before she moved, and she said one night there was a knock on the door, and some young woman was there looking for a place to stay. Well, so I invited her in, and she stayed with me. Not like that was no big deal or anything. You know, it was just, what did that person need? Maybe I can provide it, type things. And it was, and she didn't do it to say, look what I did. It was just a conversation. You know, it was, for her, it was no big deal. For me, it was like, wow, you just invited a stranger into your house, not knowing. And she took great joy whenever she talked about her grandchildren. And whenever she talked about our grandchildren, you know, my grandchildren are going to be here. Why don't you bring your grandchildren are in town, bring them over and they can swim together, type thing. And she just was, the whole time she was out there, she was smiling. But impressive woman.
I first met Joann. She started coming to Monos. And she would throw these Christmas parties for 75 people in her house. And I mean, you get there and it was packed full house, and she knew everybody there. And she had a piano player.
The sing-alongs.
The sing-alongs, all the Christmas songs. And then her story she would tell about, I'm not sure exactly what the story was. The shoe shine guy, yeah. I mean, she told that every year. And it was so moving, her entire thing. And then she would, from having such a great time with the party, the next time you saw her, she was inviting you over because it was time for a donation to some cause. And she would have you over for the cause. She got me involved in more things. I've never been involved in. I'm not a him. I did not jump into things. But Joann got me involved with the runs that they had out there to make money for the monastery thing. They had a couple of marathon runs, and needed people. And I mentioned it to my wife that she needs help, and she said, "Who's doing that?" I said, "Joanne's doing it." She said, "Okay, I'll do it." I mean, just because Joann was one who, I mean, she got everybody involved, and she made you feel like you were her best friend. She just had that personality, and like when you talked about she coming here, she had notes for today's reading. She had looked up something, and so she would add so much to the group every time she had it. It was, I mean, you know, she was just such a wonderful person. I loved her.
Prolific reader. It was like,
Prolific,
oh
yeah.
my gosh, if I could,
And she retained it.
yeah, that's the other thing, yeah.
She did. She would tell. She could tell you what book it was in, what page it was on. And you can borrow it, but I want it back. She'd say. Because she just, I want to read that again. You know, we would talk about something, and she says, you know, I have a book on that. And then, you know, she would. And she give you the shirt off to everybody, though.
Yes.
She give everybody.
I got to spend some time with JoAnn in an unusual way. I would hear her talk, and she read everything, you could tell. And parties, you know, she just made it look effortless.
Yeah.
Everything was just so beautiful, and I enjoyed that. But about a year or so ago, I spent an afternoon with her at the hospital when she was very sick at St. John, I think. I don't remember. And I bet we didn't share 15 words in 3 hours or something like that. The Academy Awards were on, we watched a little bit of that, and she was just so sick and weak that she just didn't say anything at all. But every once in a while, you know, I'd take her, you need a drink of water, or do we need to do something else? And I just sat with her, and it was fine just to be there and not say anything. I didn't feel like I had to say anything. She didn't feel like she had to say anything. For someone that shared so much, and she was just quiet. And so that's the most time that I spent with her, was just sitting with her.
I first came to know JoAnn, came to know of JoAnn when she was teaching a class at St. Mary's. And I left there thinking, I want to know that woman. But the opportunity really didn't arise until Monos. And I was so, so grateful to get to be a friend, to be able to consider JoAnn a friend. And she challenged me in so many ways. She had been driving Father Bill to Monos, but her schedule was crazy. And she said, would you do this? And I reluctantly said yes. And it was one of the greatest gifts she ever gave me, because I got to spend that time with Father Bill. And then when Anna Maria needed a ride, I jumped in with both feet, because I knew after with Father Bill what spending time with Anna Maria was going to be, and did that. But when I called the day our neighbor came over and there was abuse and stuff, and she immediately, we talked, but then she called back and she said, would you like me to come and bless the house? And she had written the most beautiful prayer. I brought a candle and blessed the very area where everything happened. You know, she didn't think anything of it. It was like, you need this. And my last contact with JoAnn, I was texting her when she was in rehab. And I'm texting to find out how she is, and she's texting back. But then also, and have you seen what the bishops are doing now? She was still on top of everything. And one of the things that JoAnn said that I have, ever since I heard, I thought about it. She goes, what is enough? What is enough? Do you have more than enough? Then share that. But basically, you don't need more than what is enough. I will miss her dearly.
I hope you leave her Facebook up for a long time, because it's a log of all that she believed in. I always knew when she was feeling better, because suddenly there'd be a lot of JoAnn on the Facebook. But yeah, I'm gonna need to go back over so many of those things.
There's a beautiful one there, her sitting at the monastery and gave about a 10-minute talk on there. And to sit there, listen to her talk and tell about this movie.
Kristen, can I ask you, if you're comfortable doing this, to tell us about the moments when she passed, when she died?
Yeah.
Because I think we all knew she was pretty critically ill, but I've never heard exactly what transpired, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's imposing
that's
on me,
fine.
but maybe other people would like to know.
No, lots of people have asked, because they weren't aware that she was ill, so last, or January 2025 was when she started getting really sick, and
Right.
that spring she had 3 hospitalizations, and then she's had 2 or 3 more now. She ultimately got diagnosed with sarcoidosis and cirrhosis, and she also had psoriatic arthritis already. So we saw a rheumatologist for that. So last spring I started taking her to cardiology, pulmonology, urology, and all the different specialists. And so I took her to those appointments, and then she just wanted to get better and just couldn't. And so ultimately, I think it was the sarcoidosis. But then this last hospital stay, she was diagnosed with HLH, which is a leukemia. It's a blood cancer, and she didn't want to pursue treatment, but her lungs were already too shot. So she was having lots of trouble breathing, even on the maximum oxygen. So she and I had a very lucid conversation 2 days before, and we talked about she wants an obituary, so we're writing that. We're trying to figure out services, and then she talked about having her funeral or celebration of life or funeral, whatever we want to call it here. So we're working on that, and she'll be buried in Michigan, where she's up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, hopefully sometime this coming summer. And that was really the last conversation I had with her. Besides the last couple hours, we put her on comfort measures, and she wasn't really with it then. But there was a moment that she came out and she said, "This is going to be short, y'all." And it did take longer than we thought it would. We took her off everything, or started weaning off her oxygen, but she came and said it's been a wild ride, and that she loved us and loved her grandchildren, and that she was really proud of us. And so in those moments, we knew that she knew what was happening. So that was really it.
Were you with her when she
Yeah.
passed?
Tess, Daniel, and I were all with her, as well as our good friend Amber, and then her one of her best friends, Joni Sexauer, came in, and she's known her since they moved here. You may know her too. I don't know.
A long time ago. Oh,
Yeah, so she was with us too. So the 5 of us were with her. So
thank you.
yeah, and she died Friday night about 7:20. So,
thank you.
Yeah, but we're glad to answer any questions people have. There aren't any secrets. So,
It's just nice to know that it sounds like it was peaceful, and that she knew that it was time.
yeah, I know she wanted to get better, and she had lots of things planned and taken care of, but I don't think she knew she was gonna die this early. She told me in one of our conversations she was hoping to live till at least 80.
No.
But so I don't think any of us knew it was gonna be this particular hospital stay, but you know, we knew it. So it was time. No.
I know it was a rough year for her, but I'm glad that at the end it didn't go on forever for her.
Yeah, we are too.
Regina, could I share something about JoAnn?
Yes.
Is this good time? Okay. I remember the first time I met JoAnn, it was probably, oh my gosh, 20 years ago, maybe. I was at the church at around 26 in Harvard. And it's funny, the pastor that was there is now the pastor of that church here in Grand Junction. And so I forgot his name, but anyway.
Fellowship,
So,
yeah.
pardon me?
Fellowship Congregational.
Yeah. Anyway, I saw JoAnn and she had that long hair up in a ponytail and she had a very distinctive look. And I thought, I really want to meet her. So after whatever it was we were attending, it was some social justice related meeting, I'm sure. I went up and introduced myself. And from that time on, we'd see each other. And then soon after that, I joined Manos and met her there as well. But she made me so more sensitive to social justice issues. She really had an effect on me in that way. And I used to, when I go to her house, the first thing I do is go over to the refrigerator and look at everything on her refrigerator. Because she always had these articles up there, and she'd send me when we moved to Colorado. She would send me articles and in the mail, and anyway, she just really increased my awareness. But I do have something funny to tell you. So on our last time we lived in Tulsa, she called me one day and she said, "Hey, I have to do a few things out at the forest. Would you want to go with me?" And I said, "Sure." And so she picked me up and, I'm thinking just, I don't know, picking up something or whatever she's going to do. So we pull in. Well, she starts pulling like saws out of the van and rakes and all. Well, I will just tell you the next day I was plenty sore because she was like cutting down limbs and things and trees and hauling all the debris with a wheelbarrow. And I look back and it was so funny because, I probably had pretty nice, I probably dressed up because I was going to see people out there. And it was funny, but she was so strong physically too. Oh my gosh. It's like, I could not believe the stuff she did. She was a real example to toughen up too and to use the physical strength that we all have if we use it. But she was an inspiration in so many ways, and I'm doing everything I can to be at the service when you do have it. So I'll be back to Tulsa. But thank you for coming today, Kristen.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I know JoAnn had some grief with organized religion. She disagreed with a lot of things that organized religion was doing, and I agree with her. I think she was spot on, and sometimes she was sort of a lone voice in a crowd, but she always was guided by the right principles, which was following Jesus. And that was, I think, exactly what she wanted to demonstrate to the world. And I know I've heard her say several times that her church is Manos, and her going to church service was Manos Tuesday morning meetings. And I think that just sticks in my head so much of this was really important to her.
Can I say something?
Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Joan.
Yeah.
Hi, Joan. Hi, Maurice.
Hi.
Right ahead.
I have been just stunned by her death, and I feel so sad about it. When I hear what everybody says, it's all true. She was such a well-rounded person, and she was so brilliant. And I would be so awed during the Monos meetings about the brilliance. She would bring out ideas and a way of looking at things in the scripture that I had never been able to do myself. I mean, she was just so brilliant. Um, and it's so sad to think that all that brilliance and that goodness has been quieted forever, but I know she's with Jesus. Um, but beneath all that brilliance, there was just a love, and it came through everything that she did. And I will always remember her. And that's all.
Um, I knew of her for years. I think she might have been in the ski club,
Yes, she was.
and that goes way back. But I knew her activities at the Osage, and yeah, I think she was on the board. But she was really active, and yet she was personal. She sent us a wonderful card, 6 months ago. A lengthy message, and I just wonder where she finds the time. I think that's been mentioned, but she must never slept. And she was personal. While she was ill, she would come for a short time to Manos, and once just before she left, she came over and talked to me, and it was touching. I can't exactly remember what she said, but she said something alluded to my openness, and I don't know. It really grabbed me. Uh, uh, and that's the first time I'd felt her personalness. I'd always thought she was kind of an intellectual, but that changed everything. She really was a very personal person, and she'll be missed. She was such a biggie in Manos. I mean, she really activated our group, and she filled us or enlightened us to so much. I just couldn't fathom how she gathered all that information, but she will be missed big time.
Kristen, how are the children doing? I know they're surrounded by your love, but this has to be hard for them too.
Ellie's sad. Ellie's 7. She's my youngest. Clara refused to go to school. We let her stay home yesterday, so she's having a hard time. I think Tessa's boys are sad, but doing all right. My brother's struggling. My mom was most worried about my brother emotionally, so she just told us to watch out for him. So, but then Cadence, Daniel's son or daughter, sorry, she's sad, but I mean, she lost her mom a little over a year ago. So, Cadence said she just turned 15. So she and I have talked about that. We just said just a crappy club to be a part of. So, but Tess and I have been reaching out to her quite a bit this past year, and we will continue to. So Tess will be here in a little bit. She couldn't get here in time, but yeah. And I don't know how Cohen is. He was on the cruise last week, so he's 9. So.
I know everyone has thought about all of you and your children.
Thank you.
Just know that we love you.
I know my mom loved you all too. She loved coming here. It was hard when she couldn't come, so.
I do have one big regret. She had invited me to come over and listen to Ilya Delio. And she had a limited time with some of her videos. And I just couldn't make it. But that would have been so rich. And, you know, I just said to myself, you gotta stop acting so busy. You gotta do these things with people. Yeah.
My 7-year-old Ellie said something the other night, and of course it made me cry in her too. She said, I just have so much more to talk to her about. And I think we probably all feel that way.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
Regina, was Joann with us in Denver when we heard her speak?
No, it was just me and you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But she was with us when we went to Richard Rohr's at
That's right.
the
Yeah.
something church.
Yeah.
Anyway, with now all the names have left me, but she was with us then.
Yeah, it was Gay and Joann, you and Mia.
Anybody else? Well, Kristen and I are going to go in and talk to some people in the office about possibly having the service here. I'm going to hand the bowl over to Mike. So then do your sitting and carry on. And
I have the power.
thank you all for sharing. That was really special. And thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for coming. Yeah, thanks for letting me.
Bye, Kristen. Bye.
I'm going to speak Steve's
My doctor.
Okay, everybody get ready for sitting.
Well, you were looking good. I'm ready to walk.
They're gonna do now.